Hey, Kareem. Hey, Jenny. Hey, Jennifer. Nice to see you. Jennifer, you're calling from Sudbury, correct?
Yeah, that Jenny. Yeah.
Jenny. Oh, okay. Sorry. Jenny's calling from Sudbury. Jennifer
Yeah.
is calling from Toronto.
Toronto.
Okay. Okay. And you both know each other, right?
Yeah, we're besties.
Ah,
Yeah.
love it.
Hi, Camden.
So cute. So cute.
We have several
Remember when
background children and
exercise?
background kids.
Yes.
Our cats and dogs in our classes.
Yes, yes. Kids, cats, dogs. We are welcoming everyone here. We got a few more new people coming through. Again, we'll give it another couple minutes. I believe we have and I don't know if his audio is connected, but my great grandfather from the UK is called in, which is cool to see, and my uncle as well. Hey, Kesa. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Yeah, so today's topic, if you're not aware, is uncovering motivation. Motivation is a real thing, right? We all struggle with it. We all have it in our lives in some form or another. And so we're going to figure this out. We're going to figure this out together to a degree. And what can we take away from it in the long run, right? Like what can we take one item and can we apply it to our lives, for today or for the following week and keep it consistent? Because consistency is key at the end of the day. So let's see what we can do today. I am going to start with giving a little bit of an introduction with myself and Pat, and then also giving a little intro for Bobby, our speaker. So I'm going to spotlight now, and I am going to mute everyone just so everyone can hear the speakers or who's talking well. So we're here. So for those who don't know Pat and Vaish, my name is Vaish. That's Pat. So we run Fitness in Place, which is a virtual fitness community. And a lot of the people in this call are a part of our community, which have been. And we are so grateful for the amazing folks that are a part of our group. And that's not to say that you're not, for the folks that are outside of the group, we still want and encourage you to come through whenever you can, because these workshops are meant to be accessible to everyone, especially to marginalized communities who may not have access to health and fitness resources. So this is why we created Fitness in Place, and which is why we also have a very affordable membership rate sliding scale, from $10 membership Canadian to $85 membership Canadian monthly. We offer all the options so we can provide you fitness classes, workshops, scholarships, and more. And there's more and more things coming together for us, but that's just a little bit about Pat and I. Now I'm going to get into Bobby. Now, Bobby and I, we've known each other for several years. He was actually my old manager, my fitness manager at my gym. And so when I started out, I was, as a fitness trainer, I didn't know if I would be cut out for the job, to be honest. I didn't see anyone that looked like me. Wasn't very good in sales, didn't know what to do there. But Bobby was pivotal in my growth and in my decision to continue with personal training as a career. And so Bobby was the motivating factor who told me to believe in myself, told me to shoot my shot. He told me, I can do this. You got to give it a chance. And so with him, I've grown tenfold, and I continue to see him grow as well. And so why I chose him as the speaker is because of my own personal experience. And I want to give you all a taste of Bobby, because Bobby is immense, and we're only here for an hour and a half. And so, yeah, shoot your shot. It's a real thing. So I'm going to leave it now to Bobby to speak on uncovering motivation. And again, we'll continue to do our chats and make this interactive as well, as much as we can. But let's all learn and really stay present as we listen to Bobby. Bobby does have his own introduction that he's going to share with you all too. So I'm going to switch to him, and we'll unmute and make sure he can chat. let me, ooh, we're both spotlighted. So I'm going to ask you to unmute, Bobby, and I'm going to remove my spotlight.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. First thing first, that is exaggerated and highly undeserved praise, but I appreciate it nonetheless. I'm very, very excited to be here. I am immensely proud of Vaish to see the strides that she's made in her career. And I think the fact that this many people showed up is a testament to the sort of positive impact that she's had, her along with Pat. So first thing first is tremendous props to you guys, right? My job today is to share some things about motivation, plain and simple. Give me 1 second here to make sure this works. Bear with me. Share. Okay, is my slide visible, guys?
Yes, Bobby, you are good. We just can't see you, so I'm going to ask you to share your video, and that would be the only thing. There you go.
There you go.
We can see you.
Good.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, Sue. Oh, motivation, guys. Motivation and fitness. You know, I'm not some kind of expert, as I shared with Pat and Vaish during the week. I'm just here to share some insights that I have. And my preference is very much for this to be a collaborative forum for discussion. So if anybody has their own experiences that are pertinent to this, has their own things that they disagree with or want to chime in on, please, absolutely, let's go for it, okay? Motivation and fitness, more than a buzzword. So this is what the agenda looks like very, very briefly for today. We're going to talk about motivation, what it is. We're looking at conceptual sources of motivation. We're looking at frameworks for classifying motivation. Then we get into the meat and potatoes of this, like why should we care about motivation and fitness? Then we look at how to tap into motivation. And then we leave off with some summary take-home points. Again, if at any point somebody has something that they'd like to chime in on, disagree with, I've tried to provide ample space to allow for that, right? A little bit about myself. My name is Bobby. I am a personal trainer and a fitness consultant. My undergraduate education is in psychology. That's what I did my BA in from the University of Toronto. My graduate education is in political science from the same university. I'm a fitness enthusiast, if I can call myself such. Like Vaish alluded to, I used to manage a health club. I was a diplomat for a little while at the United Nations. So I've worn many hats, you know, more so than being here to teach anybody. I'm super excited to, you know, learn everybody else's story and just be a part of this awesome thing that Vaish and Pat have initiated. So motivation, you know, even before we go into this, does anybody have their own ideas as to what motivation is? Anything that you want to chime in on? If you want to, you know, share it in the comments, please, let's just go ahead there.
Bobby, can we stop the share and give that space? Because we can't see anyone outside of you right now. Just for a few minutes. So if we can use the chat and yeah, explain what is motivation to you, or unmute yourself and feel free to or raise your hand.
Yeah, let's do like a hand raise just so it's not too chaotic.
Yeah, there are a couple reaction options at the bottom of your screen, or just raise your hand on your video. Go ahead, Mary Rose. You can unmute if you'd like.
But motivation is like something that inspires you and kind of, for me, that carries me through. no matter whether I'm in hell or heaven, or I like what I'm doing or don't like what I'm doing, it just keeps me going. It keeps me motivated. It's partly engaging with my imagination, but yeah, what gets us through anything? Motivation.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Beautiful. Thank you, Mary Rose. Dillany on the chat says motivation is the why to what I do. Love that. Love that. Is there anyone else that would like to share what motivation means to them? I may pick on people.
Jennifer's.
Jennifer. Oh, go ahead, Jennifer.
No, I think she put it in the.
Sorry. Chat. Jennifer says, what makes the want to do something? The want in caps. Love it. Kaylee and Amelia says, motivation is consistent discipline for me. Love it. Love it. Kaya says, motivation is energy I have to commit myself to others. Amazing. Elan says, what gets you going from point A to point B? Zamila, were you going to raise your hand and say something? Oh, no. Okay, you're good. Okay. All right. We're going to give it back to Bobby.
No. Don't call on me.
Don't call. Go ahead, Bobby. I'm gonna ask you to spotlight and continue on with the show.
Sure. So, all of this is absolutely correct. Every single answer everybody has given is accurate. And we've basically just hit the nail on the head. Let me return myself here. Okay, is my slide visible?
Yes, you are good.
Okay, beautiful. So that's exactly it, guys. Motivation, if we're talking about like its origins, it comes from the Latin word movere, which means to move. So to kind of tie in everybody's definitions together, motivation is basically the processes or forces that drive any behavior, right? And some of us have touched on a lot of the related words. What's your reason? What's your drive? What's your incentive? What's your inspiration? So motivation is literally what moves you to action, right? When we talk about conceptual sources of motivation, everybody or most of us, based on the answers we've given, have some sort of familiarity with the concept. Motivation itself has actually been studied the most in the field of psychology as an actual science. There's neuroscientific arguments, there's social arguments, there's psychological arguments. So basically, is motivation stemming from the brain? Is it stemming from society? Is it stemming from the mind? They're basically different ideas of where it comes from, right? Some examples, so the purpose of today is not to get too technical or scientific. I will touch on a couple of examples of motivational theories. There's a neuroscientific theory called motivational salience. And if we're keeping it simple, that basically argues that motivation comes from the brain. And essentially human beings are either driven toward reward-oriented behavior or driven away from behavior with bad consequences. That's the nuts and bolts of what neurocognitive theories explain about motivation. There are psychological explanations for motivation. I don't know if anybody is familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And, that just basically argues that what motivation comes from is the desire to have certain needs met. And these needs are organized according to a pyramid with very, very basic things like food, shelter being at the bottom of that pyramid, going all the way up to more socially complex needs, the apex of which is self-actualization, right? So again, we're not trying to delve into the fancy stuff and the theory behind it. These are just examples of some people's explanations for where motivation comes from. So that slideshow there is just an example of those two contrasting theories. That's the psychosocial one, and that's the neurocognitive one. In the same way that we have different conceptualizations of motivation, we've also got different frameworks for classifying motivation. What are the different types of motivation? So again here, just to highlight a couple of the examples, there's a continuum between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. There's reward seeking versus pain avoidance. There's superficial versus substantive. These are just examples of the different types of motivation. I will speak to the intrinsic versus extrinsic one because that is one that is probably relevant to us as people who have some sort of interest in fitness. So, you know, similar thing. Has anybody heard, I'm going to take my screen here for a second, if that's okay. Has anybody heard of this difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation? And if you have, same thing, please feel free.
Okay, so Jennifer says intrinsic coming from inside. You can even do a thumbs up if you would like on screen, or a thumbs up with your reaction button. Extrinsic coming from the outside of yourself. So Bobby and I, we're all just curious. Have you heard of intrinsic and extrinsic? Is this a yes? Is a yes or no question? Suzanne says yes. Cool. We'll give it another 15, 20 seconds. Cool. Dylan, yes. Vivush, yes. And it's okay if you haven't. It's totally okay if you haven't. This is just something that sometimes gets brought up through school or through university. Kaylee and Amelia have thumbs up. That's okay, Jennifer. We're glad you explained it. We're gonna get into it too. Cool. Okay, Bobby, I think we got a grasp.
Okay, awesome. So, you know, the mentioning of coming from inside versus coming from external is bang on, right? So extrinsic motivation is basically motivation that's derived from a source outside of the actor, as we've perfectly phrased it. So think of doing something for a reward, or think of doing something to avoid a bad consequence of some sort, right? So let's think of doing a job that maybe we don't necessarily love because we get paid a decent amount, or think of exercising because you're looking forward to, you know, losing some body fat. Those are external reasons driving you toward a certain point, okay? We contrast that with intrinsic motivation, which is motivation, as we've rightly phrased it, that exists within the actor. So behavior that is driven by satisfying internal rewards. So think of doing that same exercise activity just because you purely love exercise. The reward is in doing the task itself. So it does seem like this is something we're familiar with. This is just an example contrasting two different types of motivation there. Okay, so as we've just spoken about, think of getting that nice big bag of cash for doing the activity versus doing the activity just because you love it. Okay, so quick poll here. I'm going to take myself off again. Like I said, I really want this to be more of a forum discussion. If you had to guess based off of what you know, we can put it in the comments. Full source of motivation between intrinsic and extrinsic. And if you want to take yourself off mute and actually speak to it, please, by all means.
Yeah, go ahead, Sheldon. We would love it. And Vivush, you can go next.
I believe for me, the intrinsic motivation is what I find is better, and I am personally motivated by that too, because I don't know if I'm right about the answer, but intrinsic motivation is something that you're motivated by just to have a better feeling inside, like for example, cleaning up the house. You know, it's not a big reward for doing it, but at the end of the job, you feel better, like and inside. So I find that extrinsic is pretty much me.
Thank you, Sheldon. Very beautifully
Well, and they're
put.
paired together, it sounds like. The external makes you feel better internally. So they kind of work together in a way.
Right.
Thank you so much. Vibhush, you're next. We can't hear you, so let me spotlight you and then ask you. There you go.
Sorry, I was saying I was agreeing with what Sheldon was saying, what Pat was saying. I look at intrinsic motivation as something I definitely use as a way of just kind of understanding like self-knowledge. And the more I learn what I learn about myself through my actions, with the external, I gain an understanding of how to kind of keep that motivation up from the inside out. But kind of what Sheldon and Pat were saying, you do need the external to help find that the juxtaposition of between where you're going. But I'd say for me, external motivation or extrinsic motivation, I think as someone said, it was common and much more understood as how to kind of keep yourself going. But I'd like to say that intrinsic motivation makes you feel like, I feel like for me, makes me feel like more of a verb, where extrinsic motivation can make me feel like a noun at times.
Deep, always deep. That's my brother. I love him. I've learned a lot from him. Let's see who else feels like sharing. I do have a lot of chat things that are coming. If you do raise your hand through reactions, I can also give you some space. Yeah, and then we have some chat here. So I'm going to start from the bottom up. Amelia says, I feel intrinsic to be definitely more powerful, but I find myself being affected by extrinsic a lot more, aka stress from work. Definitely feel that to be real for me too. Amelia, Dillany says what Diego said, and what Diego said was intrinsic equals more powerful, extrinsic equals more common. And then we had Suzanne, Ilan, and Dillany say all intrinsic were more powerful than the extrinsic. Yeah. Anyone else would like to chat before we give it back to Bobby? Balu, you just came on screen. Do you want to say something? And Mary Rose, go ahead. We're going to do Balu first. You are muted, Balu. Unmute and then you can talk.
Okay, well, you can go ahead.
Okay. Do you have something to share?
No, not really. No, it's okay. It's
okay. Fine. Okay, I'm going to give it to Mary Rose. 1 second.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a dance between both, because there's times when I am internally motivated for whatever reason, and there are other days when I'm not, and I need something external to help me and to support me. And that's part of what being part of Fitness in Place is it's something that I'm not feeling motivated, but once I get into a situation where I'm being guided, then it kicks in. So I think for me, it's kind of a dance between both.
Beautiful. Thank you so much again for everyone who's shared. We really, again, we can only be as collective here. Growth comes from all of us sharing, and only if you feel comfortable.
Different
ideas, different perspectives, different upbringings. They all make a difference in all of this. So I'm going to give it back to Bobby for the next part.
Sure. So, I have to say that it's actually really cool to, be listening to such a self-reflective and a self-aware group of ideas. As we said, there is no right answer here between intrinsic and extrinsic. It's all just kind of coming down to personal preference. And it was literally just a poll. Which do we feel is more powerful based on each of us, right? Generally speaking, when you take such polls, let me go back here. It leans slightly toward intrinsic as a more powerful source of motivation, right? Now, that being said, I will just highlight a couple of studies that have shown some very, very interesting things about the relationship or the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. The first study that I want to quote, and I'll be happy to share this in more detail with anybody who wants to see, studies have actually shown that if we have a behavior that is more intrinsically motivated, rewarded extrinsically, the motivation for that activity actually starts to go down. So think of a child who, for whatever reason, just loves reading their books and loves doing their homework on time just for the sake of it. Studies have shown that when you start to give that kid treats as a reward, they actually tend to start showing lower motivation for that activity. So sometimes trying to extrinsically motivate an already intrinsically motivated behavior backfires, right? On the opposite side of things, studies have also shown that, let's say that there's a behavior that we're not motivated to do at all. Rewarding it extrinsically at the beginning can actually over time lead to us to internalize the motivation and start to intrinsically enjoy it. And that's where our role as positive influencers, fitness personalities comes in, right? You start to encourage people maybe with extrinsic rewards in the hope that they eventually begin to internalize and start to enjoy those activities just for the sake of them. Just a couple of interesting studies that I wanted to highlight there, right? The other contrast in motivation that I wanted to touch on that I feel is relevant to our discussion today is superficial versus deep motivation, right? And the descriptors here are fairly self-explanatory, right? Superficial motivation refers to anything that's surface level, and it's generally devoid of a powerful emotion behind it. So think of something very, just kind of surfacey. I want to exercise so I can look good in my new clothes, right? There is no powerful underlying thing going on there per se, or at least not that initially captures the attention. When we contrast that with a deeper substantive motivation, now you're looking at a driver that does have a powerful emotional component. So same thing, think of that same exercise activity. If someone said, I want to exercise so I can look good in clothes versus I need to exercise to lower my blood pressure so I can live long enough to attend my granddaughter's graduation. Can we kind of see that one of them has an attached emotional driver and the other doesn't? That's kind of where we're getting into the difference between superficial and deep motivation, right? Very interesting point there. These are not mutually exclusive. Substantive motivation or there's a superficial motivation. More often than not, what tends to happen is we just haven't discovered the underlying motivation that's more profound and emotional behind that initial superficial motivation. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody have any comments? Anybody have their own experience they want to share here about their fitness goal? Any experience they have between a superficial motivation and an underlying powerful motivation? Looking through these notes here.
So I can share a little bit because I as well have my own experiences with training and motivation and how that's affected me. So when I first started training, I had recently gotten broken up with and was unsure of what I was going to do with my time. And so an annoying girl at work said, hey, like, let's go to this gym. And she wouldn't stop bothering me about it. So I was like, all right, I got nothing better to do. I'm going to go.
External motivation.
External. Yeah, it was an external factor. And so 6 months in, I'm like the fittest I've ever been. I feel good about my body, a lot of external good feelings. But the thing that kept me going after the 6 months was the deeper emotional, substantial effect that I was like, you know what, this is going to help me live as long as possible and to be strong and not a burden to my loved ones. So that is what keeps me going, in my desire to be healthy overall, is to be able to be less of a burden, but also to be strong for myself and for my loved ones. And that's what speaks to me. And so I would love to hear what others, you know, do have or don't have. Again, nothing is right or wrong here. We want to create this safe, you know, environment for people to share. Can you repeat the question? Yes. So the question is, Bobby, do you want to repeat that?
Sure. So does anybody have, well, first of all, are we kind of familiar, or did we kind of grasp the difference between a shallow motivation and a deep motivation? Okay, great. So if that makes,
Yeah, I can read that, Bobby, or Vibhush, you can just speak to it if you don't mind.
What'd you say?
Do you want to just speak to your comment? Vibhush?
Oh, yeah. So to go off what Bobby's saying, I was a collegiate runner years ago, and I had a heavy extrinsic motivation to perform based on being a team, based on being on scholarship. And I did not hit my times, and it was a very tough time, you know, being put in that position where you're expected to perform and you couldn't. And I'd say, you know, those years definitely had an impact on me, and I learned a lot about myself and what kind of held me back. And I think a lot of it had to do with understanding my own intrinsic motivations, which is where I'm saying now that I feel like I've kind of understood them. I'm able to start training differently and you know, start going after those goals again that I had in college in a different way. That took some time to really understand that. So it went from a superficial to a more deeper sense.
Thank you so much, Vibhush. Thank you. Yeah, honestly, this is a time for any kind of questions or answers. Alon, would you like to say something? We would love to hear your voice.
Hey, hope the traffic near me doesn't sound too loud. Yeah, and I think just to build up on what Vaish, Vibhush, and Bobby been saying about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivations, I think extrinsic tends to come first, because if we're looking at a period of time, like that's very much like short-term goals, short-term rewards, etc. And the intrinsic is what, you know, like keeps you going for 25 years, right? Like we can have an easy goal of like, you know, I want to look good for this summer. I want to look good in my bikini, etc. But what keeps you in the gym, keeps you active, keeps you from, you know, like making healthier choices when it comes to your nutrition is, you know, like that's the intrinsic that's going to drive you and lead you all that long distance, right? And I think for me, my intrinsic, what I've learned is you know, as you work out, as you get stronger, as you move more, you notice that, you know, limits of what you're able to do are being pushed further, or they're just removed altogether, right? So like that intrinsic motivation ends up being so that I can navigate, at least in the physical sense, but also, you know, emotionally and spiritually and mentally, but to move through life with much more ease, right? So that I can do anything I want in life. There's nothing that's going to prevent me from doing that besides this brain here. That's all I got.
Love it. Thank you, Alon. And just to do a little intro on Alon, she and I and Bobby all worked in the same gym. Bobby and Alon have worked together for a much longer time, but she is a personal trainer and going to be a PT, a physical therapist here soon as well. And so, yes, so just I've learned a lot from her too, which has been so amazing. Jennifer writes, right now in my 40s, I am thinking about the declining health my mom has had the last 20 to 30 years since she was my age. I want to make sure I avoid that. I don't want to be limited in my choices for activities and adventures I may want to enjoy and that was the end of that. So that totally makes sense, Jennifer. Thank you for
As I grow up. Sorry, it got cut off. As I grow up.
Okay, got it. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Any questions, any comments, anything at all? We are open, we are safe. Whatever you feel like sharing is allowed. Delaney, beautiful face. Again, would you like to share?
Yes. So I have 2 kids, and I know, I mean, we all hear messages of what would be helpful for our health, fitness wise, food wise, all of that kind of stuff. And when I'm standing in a very weird place and there's a glare, sorry about that. But when my kids were very young, I used to think, I need to set an example and not eat junk food and not do all this kind of stuff. But what I ended up doing was actually hiding, because I realized that was a superficial motivator. As strong as that was, it still was superficial. And I ended up falling into patterns of quote unquote good behavior, and then falling off that bandwagon and taking on behaviors that weren't as helpful, until I really developed the understanding that I need to do that for myself, for my long-term health. And so it was that transition from the extrinsic to the intrinsic that really kept me, that has kept me going now, and has seen some more long-lasting results.
Thank you so much, Delaney. Delaney was our first workshop speaker, and it's so good to see her be a part of our community. We have Suzanne, who just said, I'm with Jennifer. Also, I want to stay active so I don't get to the point where I start to act older because my body won't do things I want to do. And that's real. It's so real for so many of us, right? None of us can avoid age. None of us can avoid, the things that come from it. And so, we feel that even at 32, I'm starting to feel that. I can feel my body declining, and it's a process to come to terms with. Anyone else before we give it back to Bobby? Oh, go ahead, Sheldon.
Yes, I would like to speak to you guys about the deep motivation. I find that I went through a deep motivation because of the pandemic that happened to all of us, the COVID. Because one story I had, because I was doing therapy for 3 months, and being there and knowing that this pandemic is happening and people are passing away because of it, gave me a deep motivation, because I was pretty much not allowed to visit family and friends because I did a 3-month therapy. And for that, gave me a deep motivation to leave therapy and do the best that I can before the worst came to worst, like some family members got sick or passed away. So I find that the deep motivation really did help me because of the COVID, because it made me want to assure that my family is okay. And right now, I'm not in therapy, and I made sure that family was happy before it was too late. It was just the fear that I had of COVID affecting my family that gave me a deep motivation to make sure that everything became okay.
Thank you so much, Sheldon. For
Very deep motivation.
Yeah.
The deepest family, probably about the deepest motivation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing with all of us, because that's some real stuff. Amelia, Vibush says, acting quotation marks old is real for many people, and that's very true. Amelia says, before coming out as trans, my intrinsic motivation was non-existent and twisted, since I was trying to live life by repressing as much as possible. This made having motivation to do anything almost impossible. I dropped out of college, never took care of myself, and then I think it cuts, oh no, I got it. Never took care of myself, etc. However, once I was able to address my intrinsic motivations, I was able to actually feel good about being motivated, doing things both intrinsically and extrinsically. Wow, that is, again, amazing. I can't say how, moments like this, Sheldon sharing and Amelia and everyone sharing, this is what brings me to feel passionate about what we do, because people feel comfortable sharing. There is a truth being shared. And I love hearing people's stories, whether it's good or bad. We all have ups and downs, and we have to figure it out for ourselves. Amelia, thank you so much for sharing that, because that's so beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, let's take that in. Bobby, I'll give it back to you now for more.
Sure. That is so cool, guys. Thank you for sharing those stories. Those are very, very impactful. And it just goes to show that motivation is personal. Motivation is personal. Motivation is fluid. And what it means to you, nobody can ever contest, right? Is my screen visible? Am I good?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, awesome. So this is what we're really here for. Why should we care? All this talk about motivation is nice, but because all of us are interested in fitness in some capacity, we really want to know what this means. How can we use this? So why should I care so much about motivation when it comes to my health and fitness goals? How does this help me? How can I use an understanding of motivation to give me the best chance to reach my fitness goals? If we keep it very, very simple, the answer is this: knowing your motivation, tapping into that deep underlying motivation that so many of you have so bravely shared, is what's going to give you the best chance to reach your goal. Plain and simple, right? Another simple poll: how many of us are intrinsically motivated to eat right all the time and exercise well all the time? I know I certainly am not. Is there anybody here that is always intrinsically motivated to eat and live correctly? If you are, that's perfect. You're a better person than me. I know that I certainly am not. Does anybody feel that way about themselves? Fair. We're all in the same boat, it seems. Let me just reshare myself. 1 second. Yeah, totally. So almost none of us are, and very few people are. For the majority of us, myself included, living that kind of fit and healthy lifestyle is a challenge, and it requires some deviation from the status quo, from what is comfortable. State is homeostasis. Homeostasis, borrowing from biology, borrowing from science, is basically just the state of balance. If you want to put it really simply, it's balance. The body likes to preserve balance, or preserve things the way they are, because that means you're alive. Our fundamental instinct is self-preservation. If you're alive, something is going right. The body doesn't want to fight that state of being. So anytime you try and change your state of being in any way, whether it's by pursuing some goal, changing your exercise routine, changing your nutrition routine, that's generally going to require some sort of sacrifice, some sort of dissonance, some sort of challenge, some form of deviation from the way things are, right? So because of that, there's going to have to be some kind of impetus, some kind of incentive that either makes it worthwhile or is greater than whatever the challenge or discomfort is. And the simplest example I can give here is, and this is relevant to me, and I'm sure it is to a lot of us that come from, racialized communities. Think of going to the doctor, I think as Sheldon might have alluded to, think of going to the doctor and getting a diagnosis of a lifestyle disease, like a high blood pressure. And this is not just racialized communities, by the way, it's something we all face, right? But I can only share my experience. So you go to the doctor says, diagnoses you with a lifestyle disease of some sort, diabetes, high blood pressure, whatever it is, and says you're going to have to cut out or significantly reduce your sodium intake, your processed carb intake, whatever it is, right? Now, all of a sudden, if you're somebody that loves ethnic food like I do, you're in a situation where you're going to have to forego the things that you've grown up enjoying. Now you're at the dinner table, you're having to have salads while your relatives are having all the traditional goodies. This is not a good state of being, right? But you have that powerful motivator being like, if you want to live long enough, this is what you're going to have to do. So that's an example of, finding that powerful motivation that is worth, that justifies, that overcomes the deviation from the status quo, right? Before we go on to the next topic, I just wanted to solicit everybody else's reasons people don't reach their goals. Same thing, we can unmute, we can put it in the chat. Why do we feel people don't reach goals?
Go ahead, Samila. We would love to hear from you.
Procrastination.
Do you want to expand on that a little bit? Like what it means to you, or how it's affected your clients, as Samila is a yoga instructor here in Toronto?
Yeah, I think maybe I don't know if I can't think of an example for my yoga or fitness goals, but just in terms of when I think about applying to a job, if I'm thinking of applying to a job and I'm just thinking about it and then not actually doing anything about it and just staring at the job post, and I'm not it's just there and I just keep telling myself tomorrow. I'm pushing it off, and kind of what I'm doing now, if I'm speaking to it, and I can say that's something that that's stopping me from reaching my goal of applying to this job, because it's that internal, I guess, procrastination, and that internal negative self-talk that goes on in your mind. Yeah, that's something that I go through when things like this happen.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. Very real, very real. And a lot of people do deal with that on the fitness and motivation side, right? So your struggle on the job side is someone else's struggle on the fitness side. I saw a hand, I believe it was either Jennifer or Jen, I can't remember. Can you unmute and share if you would like?
It wasn't me.
I thought I saw a hand. Diego, you came online. I know you want to say something. Let me spotlight you.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. I guess a thing for me that usually kills my motivation, kills my goals and things like that is just having the expectations just set wildly high. For me, I found that when I have those motivations where it's, hey, I'm gonna lose 20 pounds, I'm gonna try and do that in the next month, I fail literally before I even finish a sentence. It's already over. But when it's for me to kind of enjoy the ride, learn, understand, and things like that, that's where I personally found I had the most of my success. So for me, once you set the expectations too high, it's bound to fail kind of thing.
Diego, can you repeat that last part? Because the audio cut out. Just maybe come closer to the camera and say that last part again.
Yeah. So I think the last thing I said was just setting yourself up for kind of disappointment or failure.
Okay. So I think I got what you were trying to put down there. Basically like setting yourself up for failure, right? Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Some people in the chat said, let me read that. Suzanne said, not enough time. Jenny said, setting goals too high, similar to what Diego said. Jennifer says, making excuses. Let me see what else I got here. Amelia said, burning out personally. I usually try way too hard in the beginning and then feeling bad when I can't keep up, then I give up completely. So real, so real. I've definitely done that to myself many times. Dylan said, we misunderstand our motivation. So maybe the things we do are not aligned with what we actually want. Very real stuff, very real stuff. Anyone else would like to, Kaylee said, I recently realized that for me, procrastination comes from feeling that my worth is tied to my performance. Whoa, deep, 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 very deep. I can't say it enough. That was a big life change for me, is to realize that my self-worth is not associated with my performance. My self-worth is independent of my performance. And that's a hard one to remember every day. Anyone else would like to share before we give it back to Bobby? Okay, thank you so much. Bobby, giving it back to you.
Thank you. All correct answers, guys. So again, there's no wrong answer here. This is more just same thing, to gather a sense of people's opinions, where we're at, and how we feel about the matter. Okay, my video's on. Perfect. Okay, so none of those answers were incorrect. They were all incorrect. There is a common misconception that people don't reach their goals because there's a lack of skill, because there's a lack of knowledge, because they don't know how, and that tends to be incorrect. The biggest reason people don't reach their goals, so everything you guys have said is largely correct. What is not correct is that it's down to a lack of knowledge, information, or skill. We had an IG live session in the middle of the week, and Pat actually, raised a very, very good point where he mentioned that if anything, there's an overabundance of information, right? There's a lot of bad information that seeps in. And if anything, it's more so that there's inaction. You get paralyzed from the overwhelming of information versus there not being enough skill or information to get things done, right? Everything we've suggested kind of ties into that. One of the biggest reasons for a failure to reach fitness goals is not having tapped into a true underlying motivation. So somebody mentioned there being a bit of a dissonance between what you're doing and what you want. Those are all essentially speaking to the prevalence, the existence of a true, aligned, powerful, underlying motivation. Okay, so a couple of quotes that hopefully will kind of put that in perspective and speak to it. Firstly, people don't want to lose 20 pounds for the sake of losing 20 pounds. They want to lose 20 pounds because of how their life will be fundamentally different having lost 20 pounds. The famous German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Right? This is a popular saying that kind of speaks to, the presence of, or the need to have a true underlying motivation to get us to where we truly need to be. Okay, so if we were to summarize that little topic, we do it like this. Why does motivation matter? Motivation matters to your fitness goals because finding a powerful underlying motivation gives you the best chance to reach them, right? The biggest hurdle to fitness is rarely a lack of know-how, skill, or information. More often than not, it's actually not having discovered a powerful enough motivation, right? Making change is rarely easy. So the challenge I'd like to leave us with, all of us, is what is the why that's going to keep you going, even when you don't necessarily feel like it, right? If you want, please note these questions down. We can take some time to answer them now. We can do them in our own time. This is for self-reflection. Firstly, what are your major health and fitness goals currently? And if you had to be introspective, what would you say the motivation to reach them is? Number two, would you say this motivation is intrinsic or extrinsic? Would you say it's superficial or emotionally driven, right? And thirdly, if it is superficial, what could be a deeper emotional motivation under? Okay. The final section that we wanted to touch on today is how do we tap into powerful motivation? And I tried to keep things as simple as possible. I just wanted to leave us with things that we can basically start using tonight if we wanted to, right? And I'm a big believer in the power of introspection. Most of the capacity to affect change is already within us, right? So option number one would be introspection or self-reflection. We'll delve into that a little bit. Option number two is connecting with a trustworthy fitness or life coach. The key word here being trustworthy. Okay. So introspection, self-reflection, I wanted to leave us with, and again, if people want these slides, I'm happy to forward them. I don't think they're on your handout. If you are going to choose to be introspective and self-reflective, I've left out these questions that we can use as a self-exercise. Firstly, what motivates me? When have I felt the happiest or most empowered in my life? How would I feel? What sort of sense of accomplishment, self-efficacy would achieving my fitness goals provide me? Who are the people most important to me? And how would me become fitter and healthier impact them? A lot of us have already alluded to the effect that our fitness has on our loved ones, right? Related to that, am I doing this for myself or am I doing this for others? Okay. Is this a superficial goal? Or is there some deeper underlying driver here? Related to that, and this one is crucial in my opinion, could there possibly be a deeper cause to me not having achieved my goals yet? You know, and whatever your fitness goal is, what would getting there change about your life? What would lowering your cholesterol change about your life? What would losing 15 pounds change about your life fundamentally, right? So these are the questions that I propose that we all ask ourselves. And if you want these slides, I'm happy to provide them. The second option that I have there is connect with a trustworthy coach. If you feel like you would like a little bit more support in addition to asking those self-reflective questions, you could connect with a coach, okay? So find a fitness or life coach who you can either personally vouch for or who someone in your social network can vouch for, right? I worked with Vaish. I know she's a very, very capable fitness professional. Professionals are usually trained in motivational interviewing and similar techniques. I'm just gonna take myself off for a second here. And again, open the forum up. Does anyone, have experience with motivational interviewing? Do we know what it is? Have we had it done to us? Have we done it to someone else? Who is familiar or has an understanding of motivational interviewing? Vaish, I know you have some experience.
Yeah. Could you say that question one more time for me? Because I definitely want to make sure I answer it correctly.
Sure. First of all, who knows what motivational interviewing is? Second of all, if you do know, have you had any experience with it?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I've really like put thought into that. Like I feel like I do know back in the back of my mind, but like I'm still processing how that would work. Let me think about that. Zamila, I know you just raised your hand. Let me give you the mic.
So like I don't know if this is motivational interviewing, but before I teach a student, I ask them like why they want to practice yoga, like what their goal is. So like if they're doing it to better their breathing, or if they're doing it to better, if they just want to look good, or if they have a physical condition that requires them to practice yoga, or just for peace of mind or mentally, if that's their reasoning. So if I don't know if that's motivational interviewing, but that's something that I ask every student who joins before they begin my class, to make sure that their goals are aligning with what I'm teaching and what I'm offering in my practice.
That's great. That's so good. Yeah. Again, like this is a concept, like Jennifer was saying. Yeah, I don't think I've actually put it into terms of motivational interviewing. I don't know if everyone else, I know Mary Rose, you're a yoga instructor too. And we have a lot of folks who are instructors as well as students. But yeah, it's interesting to take that in and understand what that means. I know for me, when I speak to my clients, I always ask them what their capacity is for the day and what kind of internal drivers they have for the day. But when I first meet them, I do find out, okay, what are your reasons for being here? What do you want from this experience with me and with yourself? So I think without knowing, cultivate that motivational, like, hey, well, your why. And so with Bobby's presentation, I think I'm going to be really reflecting on what I do as a trainer, because I don't think I even understand it to the degree that Bobby has stated. Monica, you have spoken. I would love to hear you speak. Beautiful Monica, here we go.
Hello. I work in medical simulation, so I have heard of medical students how to do motivational interviewing. So there's like an acronym that's like SMART goals. I don't remember what all the things stand for. It's like, are your goals, like they'll ask you like, what changes would you like to make in your lifestyle, like in the next 2 weeks? And like, then you work together to make a goal that's like attainable and timely and that measurable, and whatever the other like letters in the SMART acronym stand for. There we go. Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time sensitive. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's a real thing. I know I've heard it in training, and Bobby, Ilan, Mary, all of us, I'm sure Zamila, have all heard it in our training lives. I do want to comment on a couple people that have stated. Amelia says, I'm not sure what motivational interviewing is, but I definitely feel a lot better and more grounded after my sessions with Vaish, even just while talking and checking in with what sort of extrinsic things have been affecting me for the past week. Yes, so that is really critical. Thank you so much for sharing that, Amelia, because Amelia and I have been working together for the last 6 months, and it has been a process for me to help and also understand the context of someone's life, because I'm not with them. I'm only with them for an hour or 2 hours out of a 168-hour week. And so it's been really good to understand that too, Amelia. Thank you so much. Yes, and for folks who are wanting wanting the slides, the presentation, I will be sending out an email afterwards, and I will connect you with Bobby himself. So I will send you his email and you can connect with him directly. And I can also make sure that that happens. The slides do get sent to you directly. Do we have anyone else? I do see another message. Dylan, he says, starting where the person is and reflecting the choices being made so that the individual can gain insight into what they're doing and make intentional decisions, not pushing someone into doing something or telling them what to do, more about meeting, and again, more about meeting them where they are. Beautiful. Yes, very, very, very true. Very true. Does anyone feel like expanding on that, their comments in this chat, or on anything additional? Okay. I'm going to give it back to Bobby then. Here we go.
Sure thing. So it sounds like a lot of us, or a few of us, have actually done or experienced motivational interviewing without actually knowing that it's motivational interviewing, right? So there's an element of truth in everything that everybody has said, right? If we wanted to give it a description, motivational interviewing is just a technique that's designed to help people resolve ambivalence, meaning an unsurety of where they are, what their true goals are, and to actually specifically discover internal motivations. So think of specific questions such as, how would you feel having reached this goal? On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is this to you? What does this mean to you? How would this affect those close to you? The questions that are being, used to lead us down the path of discovery, at least in terms of where our real underlying motivations lie, right? So most fitness, or many fitness professionals, I should say, are trained to be able to ask these sort of questions. So in addition to the whole self-reflection piece, I would advise, if you wanted more support in that area, connect with a coach that you can trust. I will say here, as the last point on this slide says, trustworthiness is key. I'm super grateful that people here are being so willing to be open with their experiences. Bear in mind that it's a fairly intimate discussion that you'll be having. So if you are going to pursue this, make sure you connect with a fitness professional who you trust and who is reputable, right? Okay, so let's sum the last hour and a bit up. These are the things that basically we were trying to walk away with today. Number one, what is motivation? Simplest definition: motivation is what drives you to action and to keep going to reach a goal while overcoming challenges. Okay? Research suggests that there are different ideas on where motivation stems from. Research also suggests that there are different ways to classify or differentiate the types of motivation. So we looked at apologies for the typo there. Motivation matters to fitness simply because uncovering a powerful and deep motivation gives you the best chance to reach a challenging fitness goal, whatever the fitness goal is, right? Actually, there was a little bit of a debate as to what topic we should discuss today. And I think it was neck and neck between motivation and kind of the specifics of exercise and weight loss, right? Vaish and I chose to settle on motivation because, without motivation, those specifics don't really matter as much. It doesn't really matter so much what the fitness goal is. If we aren't going into it having tapped into a motivation, that's less important. On the other side of things, once we have tapped into a motivation, whatever the goal is becomes more attainable, and we're in a better position to start discussing calorie deficits, exercise specifics, different types of cardio, X, Y, Z. So that's why motivation matters. It gives us the best chance to reach whatever our fitness goal is. And the last thing we looked at for the day was a useful way to uncover a powerful motivation for each of us is self-reflection. Supplementary to that, we can look at connecting with a trustworthy fitness or lifestyle coach. That is it from myself. That is my contact. I'm sure Vaish will provide this to you if you wish to reach out to me in any capacity. I'm always happy to be a support to anybody in Vaish's community. Do we have questions? Do we have comments? Do we have feedback? Do we have any observations at all?
Anything at all. I want to just add, I would also like to hear takeaways. Like, what's your main takeaway that you're going to be, taking away from this workshop, right? Like, even if it's just a small, oh, I understand what motivational interviewing means, and I can apply that to my loved ones and how to help them through ambivalence and things that are tough during pandemic times. Yeah, so please feel free to use the chat. We are going to wrap up here in the next 10 minutes. So please feel free to chat if you'd like. Main takeaways. What are your main takeaways? Any comments, any questions? Bobby, again, is here as a resource. Feel free to chime in. Diego, I see you're back on. Let me spotlight you.
I want to say big thank you to Bobby. That was a great lecture. I learned so much in this quick hour, which is wild. Can't believe it's 2:18 already. This is great. For me, the great thing that my big takeaway is just putting so many kind of thoughts into words. For me, what's the big takeaway? Learning what deep motivation versus superficial motivation. For me personally, I found I kind of understood it, but I could never put it into words. I didn't know a formal definition. And using I think throughout, I always kind of find myself nodding a lot and kind of a lot of aha moments in kind of understanding my own personal goals and what my personal roadblocks were kind of while I was forming these goals, these dreams, and kind of what now I'm thinking what are the steps to motivation? How can I adjust my game plan to kind of set myself up for success later in my future goals?
Amazing. Thank you, Diego. Thank you so much for sharing that and for, appreciating Bobby's time and energy, because I, as much as you, have learned a lot. I've learned a lot. Even as a trainer for 5 years, there's so much more to learn, right? So I'm going to just read a couple chats, and then if you'd like to, again, come off mute, please let me know. Jennifer said, I need to do that self-reflection or have you do a motivational interview with me. I'd be happy to do that with you. Kaylee says, my main takeaway is that I feel more connected to my intrinsic motivations. No, it says Kaylee there. And to my intrinsic motivations and our fitness community. Love it. Thank you so much, Kaylee, for sharing that. Anyone else? Comments, questions, feedback, anything at all? Suzanne said, I need to remember my big picture, quotation marks, big picture motivations. Taking care of myself when I am tempted to let my short-term motivation take over. Short-term motivation being I'm tired and I just want to sit down. Really important to know the difference between the two. Thank you, Suzanne, for sharing that. I am going to call on a couple folks that I haven't heard from, and if you don't feel like talking, that's okay. You can just leave yourself unmuted. But Laura, I know you're calling from Tennessee, from Nashville. How did this conversation all sit with you? Do you have any feedback or any questions at all? If you unmute, I would be happy to hear from you. If not, no worries, no worries. And I'm going to say the same thing to Kaya. How did that all sit with you? I'm going to say the same thing to Hamida. Anyone else that feels like sharing, please feel free to unmute.
Yeah, this has been really helpful. Thinking about about motivation, and it's also got me thinking about, you know, my boundaries and what things I need to start saying no to in order to expand that motivation. So yeah, this is a really great been a really great talk.
Thank you, Kaya. Thank you so much for sharing that. Laura, actually, I believe she wrote something in the chat. So she says, I've been thinking about being a life coach. I've been thinking about a life coach. I'm coming at this from the health and fitness perspective, but let me make sure I can see the entire chat here in a sec. Give me 1 second. Let me start over here. So she says, I have been thinking about a life coach. I'm coming at this from the health and fitness perspective, but also tuning in for motivation with songwriting. To be honest, I think I have superficial and non-superficial goals. Haha. I want to look good and feel good. I really want to focus on those self-reflective questions. Yes, and they were really, really, really nice questions. So thank you so much for sharing that. Folks are having to head out, and that's totally fine. All good, Laura. Hamida, I look forward to our weekly check-ins. I feel like you keep me motivated to keep going. It's hard some days when I'm so tired from taking care of my baby all day, LOL. All I want to do is sleep. And that's real. Like, taking care of another human being is a lot of work. So props to you, Hamida, for making it look easy and for continuing to give your best to your child and to your family. Amelia says, after this amazing workshop, I'm definitely looking forward to spending some time being introspective and really trying to understand my motivations more, instead of just being heavily affected only by extrinsic motivations, parentheses, which is usually what I do, which is what I usually do. So good. Thank you for sharing that as well. Hamida also says that the looking good and feeling good is so important. And it really is. It really is. There's something valuable to say about that. Yeah, anyone else before I give it back to Bobby and Pat for the final words? Thank you. No, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing, everyone. Thank you for being here, for being so present. It does take a lot to be here on Zoom for this long. So give yourself that break from the screen after this. Go get some sunshine. I'm going to give it to Bobby to wrap up, and then Pat to. I should probably go first. Pat. Oh, sorry, Pat will go first.
I do have something right after this, so I'll jump in so I can get off and get to that. I think the thing that stood out to me most is that we all kind of know this stuff. Like what Bobby said before, it's not usually a lack of skill or a lack of knowledge. I think Diego kind of mentioned this, the putting the words to the things that we know it, we feel it, but sometimes it just takes that person to put a name to it, put a face, give us a little structure, give us a little road to go down. So really trust what you know. Trust what you know, trust your gut, trust your instinct. Don't let the external world, the external motivation pull you too much. Don't avoid it completely, but don't let it pull you too much. Trust in what you know, trust in yourself. And then to take you that step further, look for those people that you trust to say, here's how to really do it. Here's how to really make it effective. Here's how to really turn what you know into a truth that you have.
Amazing, Pat. Thank you so much. Bobby, I'm going to give it to you if you have anything else to add, and then we will call it a day.
Not particularly. I think Pat hit the nail on the head just there, that a lot of this is already stuff that we know. It's just a matter of sometimes putting a label on it, putting words to it, and then putting it into action, right? Just wanted to thank you again for the opportunity to be a part of your community. I learned just as much as I shared. Everybody's experience was powerful, and I'm appreciative of this opportunity.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Bobby, first off, for making this happen. We couldn't have done it without you. A lot of folks are saying, Bobby, thank you to you, and also Alon. Alon says, thank you so much, everyone, to the group today. So much was shared, and all of the tips Bobby gave us are all great to add to my personal journey. Mita says, great workshop. Samila says, thank you. Laura says, I think I have to get inspired to find my initial motivation, and I think making myself disciplined with a routine was what got me on track and moving forward strong. Love it. Jennifer says, thank you, Bobby, for sharing your expertise in a gentle and accessible way. Very true. Laura says, thank you, Bobby. The way Bobby teaches and allows for people to be themselves is really, really what brought me to be the trainer that I am today. He is very humble, as you can see, and we all have humble mentors, humble teachers that have brought us where we are today. It's very hard to do things on your own, and you're not supposed to do this on your own. There's something powerful with being collective and having a village or a community of a few individuals or many individuals to support you through your journey. Diego says, thanks, Bobby, for the workshop. Thanks, Vaish and Pat, for helping set this up. And a big thank you to everyone on this call. It was great hearing about everyone's journey and their personal motivations. Very inspiring. And I can't say, I mean, Diego, you hit the nail on the head. We do have quite a special community, a group of folks that really do give their heart and soul to the group and to the community. With whether you're a part of us or not, we love you tenfold, and we're going to make sure you get taken care of to some degree. And Kaya says, agreed, great way to start the weekend. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Again, these are the moments during the pandemic that are so important. Amelia and Kaylee say, thank you, Bobby, for this wonderful and educational workshop. Thank you, Vaish and Pat, for putting this together and creating such a safe and amazing environment where we can feel vulnerable and openly share. And thank you, everyone, for sharing all your wonderful and introspective thoughts. Yes, this would not have been a good workshop or a great workshop without all of you. So thank you for being here and being your authentic selves. Thank you so much. Thank you, Diego. Thank you, Mary Rose. Thank you, Zamila, Laura, Jenny, everyone. Alon, Monica, Kaylee, Amelia, Kaya, Sheldon, Balapata, thank you for so much. And lastly, thank you, Bobby, for making this all happen. We look forward to having you back again. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Vaish, Pat. It's great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mary Rose.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Zam. Thank you so much.
Great workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Amelia. Bye, Kaylee.